May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, our God, our strength, and our Redeemer. Amen. Please have a seat. So, who here this morning has seen the movie The Lion King? I knew Walter had. Which did you like better, Walter, the original animated or the newer CGI one? The older one, me too. For those of you who haven't seen The Lion King, it's a movie that follows a character named Simba. Now, Simba is a young lion cub who's set to inherit his dad's kingdom. And like any good main character in a story, he goes through some trials and gets kicked out of the kingdom, and then has this period of growth, and he comes back and he takes over for his dad, and he runs the kingdom smoothly. It's what we would call in our culture a coming-of-age story. Now, coming-of-age stories are all over the place. We have them in TV, we have them in film, we have them in literature. Tom Sawyer, some would argue Harry Potter, might be coming-of-age stories in the modern context. I want to propose this morning that our gospel lesson from John is a coming-of-age story for the character of Nicodemus. Now, Nicodemus is a bit of an enigmatic figure in the biblical narrative. He only appears in John's gospel, and he only appears 3 times. He appears for the first time here this morning, early in the narrative. He appears later, kind of in the middle, and then he appears again at the end. And we know a couple of things for sure about Nicodemus. We know that he's a Pharisee and a leader of the Jews. A ruler, I think, is what the gospel lesson this morning says. And we can assume probably that being a leader and a ruler of the Jewish community, he had some influence, some sway in the community. Maybe even he was a person of some affluence and wealth. Now, in his first appearance this morning, Nicodemus comes to Jesus at night. And it's important to remember the way that John uses imagery in his gospel. John, more than any of the other gospel writers, uses vivid imagery to help his stories along. And in John, light and dark play against each other. Day and night play against each other. And the light typically represents the light of Christ, the love of God in the person of Jesus. And the darkness represents an absence of that light, a distance from God himself. Now, Nicodemus comes to Jesus at night, and he's questioning. He's questioning Jesus' teachings. He's questioning who Jesus really is. He's even exhibiting a little bit of faith in Jesus that he's questioning. And he comes at night. Now, it's significant that Nicodemus comes at night because being this really important person in the Jewish community, everybody else would have been asleep, right? Nobody would have seen Nicodemus come to Jesus and have this intimate conversation. Nicodemus is questioning maybe a budding faith that he has in Jesus, but he's not ready to go public yet. He's not ready to share that light in the darkness with the rest of the world around him. Nicodemus, to me, sounds a lot like many 21st century people of faith. Confining their faith, siloing their relationship with God to their times of worship for us on Sunday morning. Not ready to share the light of Christ in the rest of their lives, the other 6.5 days a week. Now, through John's gospel, we see Nicodemus grow in his faith. Nicodemus increase his belief in Jesus. In the next appearance, in the middle of John's gospel, Nicodemus defends Jesus against the other Pharisees. The other Pharisees want to condemn Jesus for his teachings. But Nicodemus says, hold on, wait a minute. Doesn't he deserve a trial first? Now, that's not a full-throated endorsement of Jesus Christ, but it's better than coming to him in the middle of the night asking questions. He at least stands up and says something in Jesus' defense. In Nicodemus' final appearance in John's Gospel, he comes to Jesus after his death in the light of day, where everybody can see him. He comes with Joseph of Arimathea to take the body off the cross and place it in the tomb. Nicodemus brings burial spices with him. And not just a little bit of burial spices. If you remember, earlier in John's Gospel, Jesus was anointed by Mary and Martha, and they used one jar that was worth 300 denarii. Nicodemus brings 10 times that amount. So not only is he coming to Jesus after his death in the bright light of day, but he brings enough spices to prepare a king. For Nicodemus, this is a kingly burial. Nicodemus shows a progression of faith throughout that narrative. Now, we might get an idea that this happens linearly because of the three experiences that we see in this gospel. We may think that he starts out in the dark and ends up in the light. But the truth is, we don't know what Nicodemus' faith journey really looked like. I'm sure it had fits and starts, times of faith and times of doubt. I'm sure there were times that the bright light of Christ was unmistakable. That might be the way that our lives of faith work too. Our faith journey doesn't happen on a continuum. We don't start in one place and end in another. We have times where the light of Christ is unmistakable in our life, and our faith is unflappable. But we'll face darkness too. We all, at one time or another, will wonder, where is the light of Christ? Is God really with me? Nicodemus' coming of age story matters. It matters because it shows that regardless of where we are in our own faith journey, whether it be in the darkness of doubt or in the bright light of belief and acceptance, the light is there. The light of Jesus Christ is always there, whether we see it or not. We just have to look for it. The bright light of Christ acts like a beacon in those dark days, drawing us closer to the love of God. Sisters and brothers, during this time of preparation, during this holy season of Lent, all of us need to continue to ask the questions. Am I ordering my love so that I might obtain eternal life? Am I resisting the temptations that come before me so that I might obtain a deeper relationship with God? Am I seeking the light and growing in my relationship with Christ? Regardless of whether we find ourselves in the daylight of our relationship with Him or in the darkness of doubt. Who among us doesn't have room to grow in our faith? The good news about this gospel lesson is that God is prepared. He's even eager to do the hard, messy work with us that will bring us new life and a deeper relationship with Him.